Good afternoon, everyone, and tutors Ilana. My name is Valeria Camacho Medina, and today I will present to you my action research project titled The Use of Scaffolding Strategies to Improve A1 Learners' Spontaneous Speaking. Well, this study was implemented in a beginner level group at BC, located in Guamuchil, Sinaloa, with students aged 7 to 9 years old. Well, I selected this topic because, as Yukia says, I observed that many learners, not only in this classroom, but in similar EFL contexts, struggle too much to speak spontaneously, even when they have basic vocabulary knowledge. So the situation motivated me to explore new strategies that could better support their oral development. Okay, on the second slide, research focus. Well, this took place, as I said, in the first level, called C1 or Children 1, which is an A1 classroom at BC, which is the Programa Infantil Sabatino de Inglés, and with a 1.5 hour session twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is difficult a little bit the project because the session is too short. And in this level, students were beginning to develop basic speaking skills in English. And the main problem I identified was that students hesitated when speaking. They relied too much on isolated words and depended heavily on teacher support to produce language and also for writing. And to guide this inquiry, I developed 3 research questions. And the first is, what challenges learners face when speaking spontaneously in English? The second one is, how scaffolding strategies influence students' fluency, confidence, and engagement. And the last one, what instructional adjustments can improve the effectiveness of these strategies? Well, these 3 questions allow me to understand both the problem and the potential solutions in that teaching context. Strategies or actions. Well, to address this problem, I implemented several scaffolding strategies in this classroom, like modeling correct language, using visual aids to support vocabulary, and providing sentence starters to guide student responses. And I evaluate with a qualitative and formative method. I also incorporated guided practice, and so many paid work activities, which created more opportunities for interaction between mates since they were starting the level and it was completely new for them. This helped the kids feel more confident and when speaking, and also make new friends in their new school. These strategies were implemented, as we know, over a period of 4 or 3 weeks, somewhat, and were gradually reduced in order to promote student independence. Evidence collected. On the fourth slide, I noticed this gradual reduction of support was very essential for the kids to help them move from guided participation from me to more spontaneous language use and speaking. And to collect data, I use 3 tools. The first is a teacher reflective journal. It was like a diary for me. As a kid, I like to write in my diary, but I left it because I was too busy for that. And I wrote all the observations and situations that happened during the class, and also the instructional decisions after each lesson. The second one was observation checklist, which helped me identify patterns such as participation, hesitation, and sentence production. And finally, the third one was transcriptions of students' oral production. Since I was working with kids, I decided to only transcribe what they said because I couldn't, for obvious reasons, I couldn't record their faces, and the limit was just record their voices. And for example, and during the early stages of my project, when working with vocabulary related to furniture, students only produce isolated words like table or chair. And even some students rely on their native language and only said words like sillón, cama, and so on. However, this intervention progressed because students began to produce more complete sentences at the end, like there is a backpack or something like that. And it provided a clear evidence that these changes I implemented in the classroom are being positive. Well, on the fifth slide, oh, sorry, key findings. Well, based on key findings, I noticed this project had a significant impact on both the students and me because I noticed that hesitation and limited vocabulary recall and this kind of dependence on the teacher was a main problem. And since I was working with the littlest kids at school, it was a mix of energetic students and reserved ones. And I noticed that some students remain silent all the class. And when I encouraged them to participate, they just stared at me too embarrassed to speak. But however, after implementing these strategies, I noticed an improvement in my students because they began to produce longer utterances and participated more actively, and of course, demonstrated confidence during speaking activities. In addition, when scaffolding was gradually reduced, students became more independent in their language use, so this reveals the importance of a structured support to help them transition from isolated vocabulary to meaningful oral communication. And I think, in my personal opinion, I think all of these tools are useful, but it's also important to know how to talk to young children because it's a new language for them, and we need more empathy to talk to kids in a kind tone and also respect their learning mode because most of them only knew the words by memorization because here in Mexico it's very common that our family teaches the babies the colors and the numbers from 1 to 10, and that's all. That's where the English lesson ends. And when the children arrive at their English school, they think they already know it, but the surprise comes when they have to write it and learn grammar rules, which they cannot understand even in their native language. So we need to be very patient and comprehensive with that. Well, let's move on impact in teaching and students. Well, as I said, this project had a very meaningful impact in me and also the kids because I noticed they became more confident and engaged and more willing to take risks because when speaking in English. And from a teaching perspective, I learned that scaffolding must be carefully planned and implemented in a gradual mode because I have coworkers that they don't plan too much these techniques, and it's more spontaneous and the response from the students is not the same, and we need to having that balance between support and independence because it's essential for develop these spontaneous speaking skills. And what's next? You may wondering what's next. Well, in the future, I plan to continue using these strategies, but in a stronger focus on reducing support gradually to foster students' autonomy. And I also want to create more opportunities for students to speak independently in diverse contexts. And in terms of future research, I would like to explore how these tools can be applied over a longer period of time and with different groups of learners. Because if I get to implement this, I think it will allow me to continue refining my teaching practice and better support the learning of my students. And we've reached the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And of course, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good. Thank you very much. Excellent job. We have remaining time of 3 minutes. So I don't know if you want to leave the session and come back so we start the new time and we don't get interrupted.
Okay,
Is that okay? So we start with
Okay, Miss.
and we come back to the same link. Just give me a moment to enter so I can admit you, and we start with the questions or comments for Valeria, okay? All right. So see you in a moment.
Okay.
Okay, I would start with a comment. If you're still thinking, so you take your time to think maybe what you want to ask. I have a comment. I totally agree with you, Valeria, on the thing that we as a teacher sometimes forget that, especially when we teach young learners, that sometimes what we already have in a program or books, and we try to teach them, they might not know even in their own language. Right, something that happened to me when I was coursing my third semester. So I started teaching I was substituting a teacher. So I starting with the first graders. So they are basically beginners, and you need to explain grammar, and you start speaking like pronoun, subject. They are like, what is that? They don't know in that age what is subject, what is pronoun, and we sometimes forget about that. So actually, I was told that they didn't have that knowledge. So I was lucky to have a teacher who actually was kind of helping me. But imagine how many teachers don't know that and demand so many things from students they don't know in Spanish. So it's very challenging for them. On the other hand, if we talk about older students, there is another thing that I found out, that some of the students don't have the general knowledge. What we think is obvious for anybody might not be obvious for them. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a group that most of the students didn't know who Michael Jackson was. So it was shock for me, believe me, but I was like, then, checking the literature and everything. So that can happen anytime. And we never know. So one day, what was obvious for you will not be obvious for our children. Okay, so ready for questions, guys, or comments?
Just to add on what you said, I currently teach um university students, and I have the same problem when I try to teach them something like grammar, and they don't even know what a noun is in Spanish. So my question is to you, Valeria, what strategy do you use? What do you do for to try to explain or for them to understand what the grammar is? Do you go back to Spanish, or do you try to teach them in Spanish first, or do you teach them in English? What do you do?
Yes, since they're kids, they're the littlest at the school, and sometimes the subjects they carry from their regular school are related in Spanish grammar. I try to to explain to them first in Spanish, and then I'm trying to change the language to explain them that it's very easy and it's quite the same in both languages.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, that's what I do. I try to explain it in Spanish first. Once they understand it in Spanish, I try to teach the English grammar then. Thank you, Valeria. Good job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
I have a comment, Valeria. I don't have kids like that, but my students, they don't have any background, and sometimes it's too hard to think that we guess that they know, but they don't know. And do you try mimics or something like that to try to know speak Spanish?
I try to use it, but I feel like a clown sometimes, and I try to reduce that. But it's important, and I'm trying to improve at that because sometimes my mimics are funny and they get distracted. So yeah, that's important, and it's something I'm trying to apply more.
I
Thank you.
totally get that part. It's like we say in Spanish, we have to do circo, maroma, y teatro when we are in a class, because that's why after the pandemic, when we had to wear the face mask, I was like dying because I was like, how am I going to make faces or like to exaggerate like the movements with your mouth to help them understand? It's like impossible. It was a barrier for us. And I was thinking that I work on Saturdays and my students are beginners. I don't know why I forgot about them. But when I heard you talking about it, I said like, wow, that it's my case with this group of students, and they are between 9 and 14 years old. So it's difficult because some of them are still kids and the others are already teenagers. And what Estefania said, it's like I make my the biggest effort like to not speak Spanish, and I try to draw or to do everything I can for them to understand, but sometimes it is impossible and I need to use the Spanish, because if not, the time is going to be over and we are not going to keep moving forward. And well, but I have another comment that I was analyzing while you were telling us your project. But this is a comment for you and for me, not only for you. Something I noticed between my presentation and yours, that maybe it is a weakness. That I think that our key findings were not like very clear. Uh, I don't know if it counts, okay, as a weakness. It's just a comment, like because our tutor was asking us like to identify maybe things that we can consider, and we mentioned important ideas, but I think that it was like we were like overlapping sometimes, and also that it was like difficult to distinguish between findings, between personal reflections and general observations. um, and like I told you, it's for me too, because I did that too. And I think that maybe like we could be more specific, like this is a finding and this is the evidence of that finding. Like to separate like our personal opinions, like general observations from the ones that have an evidence. Okay, so that is my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your questions and great answers and excellent presentation. So are you ready to move on?
Yes, I'm next.
Okay, Manuel or Estefania?
Me.
Estefania, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
By the way, Lana, I just joined to see what was expected from me,
Oh,
honestly.
okay. So it's
Yeah,
not your day.
I'm on Thursday. Yeah.
All right. Okay, no
I'm
problem. Yeah, all of you are invited, obviously. Anyone who
Okay.
wants
Yeah,
to
I'm
join,
trying to be. I'm trying to be an
Yeah.
active participant.
Excellent. Thank you very much.